Morning, guys. Uh, he's back again, isn't he? Way back. He's lost his mind. It's about normal. It's about 3:30 in the morning, so you're supposed to be losing your mind right now, isn't it? Anyway, we were JUN6, Roseman, California, yada, yada, yada. Oh, it is June 6th, 2021, Sunday. It is an anniversary. I've got a problem with this chair. Give me one quick second. Have to have sufficient padding on these things. I'm really good for the back, but I tell you, sometimes you still need a padding, but you still need a stiffness on it. That helps a little bit, not much. Bad back, bad neck, bad mind. Oh yeah, I'm doing real good, aren't I? How about this one? You ever tried graduating from high school? Of course you have. Who hasn't? Maybe a lot of people haven't. It's something that you go through either through the private or through the public school systems. Water. Anyway, normally when you go through these things, you're supposed to be getting these paperwork. And you're supposed to feel a lot of emotions going through your mind. A lot of things. You're going to be missing people that you've grown attached to in the school system somehow. And there are adults in the school systems that people have created bonds and friendship with. And students in there that they've created lifelong, hopefully, friendships that'll definitely last a lifetime if we're going to be using that again. But at times, sometimes let me rephrase that. I hadn't come across any political agendas when it came down for my high school graduation back in, the mid 80s. Out of a LA Unified School District insane asylum called Kennedy High School. Yes, I know the dreaded not the four-letter word, but just a four-paw nightmare they called the Cougars. The San Fernando Valley, we weren't like, but then again, we didn't like San Fernando, we didn't like Birmingham, we didn't like Granada Hills, so we didn't like anybody. But then again, nobody liked us in the first place, so that was mutual. But I did have a few students here, a few friends here and there, and graduated from different high schools that I didn't have any issues with. Only because they lived closer to them than I did. I mean, hell, I moved into an area where I did a full 3 term in a junior high, totally outside the bounds, but I still went to their school anyway. But within a few blocks radius, I actually managed to get to a high school and managed to graduate through it. Now, through these procedures, there was supposed to have been a ton of instructions. I must have missed those. I was sick during that time. When you get chicken pox at the wrong appropriate times in your life, it screws things up left and right. I was working part time at a bowling alley, and somehow I probably got the chicken pox there, or probably got it through school. Either way, I was contaminated, so I couldn't do the last 2 or 3 weeks of last high school scholastic education. And it took a doctor's authorization and probably the authorization from the school board and the school itself to allow me to graduate with the students, be among the students, and to get the coveted paperwork. I guess I was among some of those who the school had an issue with because we were given Actually, I think we were instructed we were just given the folders and then go to a classroom and get the paperwork, and that's called graduation. We were handed the folders themselves, which we had to give back to get our paperwork. In another folder, a manila folder. I mean, you talk about taking something away from a kid. When a kid starts doing politics or trying to celebrate a heritage, some schools don't like it. Other states don't approve of it, apparently. North Carolina did that to a high school student. This one student wore a flag, a Mexican flag, on top of her cape. Or probably used it as a cape. Wrapped it around her gown. And wore it throughout the ceremony. But didn't get the coveted piece of paper. They made news on this one. She was given the cardboard, but not the paperwork inside. Because she dared to break rules. Apparently, she wasn't supposed to be celebrating anything but her high school. She was celebrating her heritage. There was another student who actually wore something on the motherboard. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about that piece of crap that you put on your head. Oh, okay, that damn thing. Okay, now you're supposed to decorate that damn thing now? And it's alright to wear a Mexican insignia on that thing, but not on a gown. This is North Carolina. Conservative areas. Ultra conservative, ultra strict. So, this is what they do. This is what they wanted. Ultra conservative and screw everything else. Doesn't matter if you got free speech or not. And the school board was going to be working with the student and the parents about this. They wanted to keep it hush hush, but apparently this video got turned on and plastered all over social media to embarrass the living crap out of the school board. It worked. It worked. When she understands, or actually when it was understood that freedom of speech was being harangued at this point, curtailed by a government. Look at it this way. Consent of the governed. Federalist Papers, number 10. Hamilton and the others who were creating the Declaration, but also creating the Constitution at the same time, was trying to make points of what they thought was allowable, what wasn't allowable, and making their arguments available to people under different pseudonyms, so they didn't get themselves well known or something happen. You know, they didn't want the blowback. So if you're dealing with a government system, you're supposed to have freedom of speech against it. Either support or you're going to be protesting something, but you're not supposed to be curtailed. And we've given authority over to the school board systems to manage our children's education. Our parents did that, and we do that. And our generation will do that. That's how the system was working, to a point. So when it gets pushed, system don't like it in certain areas because they're too, they have their own way of doing things, shall we say. And for some people it may be too conservative, such as what North Carolina's school board at that time, when the story broke a few days ago, was trying to keep things hush-hush, but they couldn't. Because social media has a way of leaking stuff out, especially when you post it on YouTube and other places, to show how a school system, including a government board, notice I use the term government, is curtailing someone else's individual freedom of speech. Now, I have a lot of videos. I have a channel here that still needs more views and more subscribers. And for the stuff I keep putting out, I feel like I'm hawking at this point. I basically used a video channel of my own to get my own thoughts and feelings out, to get my own fears and phobias and my memories out before anything else would happen during these past 2 years, because they have been a roller coaster for me. They have become like a therapy session for myself, airing the stuff out. Of course, I could be doing this on private stuff and storing them in flash drives and feel good about it, but no, I don't think so, because I had to get this stuff off my chest. A lot of personal stuff, too. People will be scratching their heads saying, why are you talking about all this stuff? Why not? Because it'll be used against you. Well, if I'm going to be dying eventually, what the hell? I'm not going to stress over the damn thing if I'm dead. But it also leaves a legacy out there saying that I didn't die for anything. I didn't die for nothing, but I did die for something. But it's not indicating right now, at this moment, that I am dying. Unless, of course, if my body is dying and I'm not letting myself know about that one in the first place. So I'm really screwed on that. But I was told that you were dying when you were born, so you got a biological clock ticking somewhere. No one's been able to figure that one out yet. So what the hell? People have fun. I do memories. I bore the living crap out of people. I sap their energy. I sap their mentality. I sap anything and everything when they watch these videos. I'm not creating anything. I'm just saying my own life story. That's all I'm doing. So, you can subscribe to the insanity. You can view it. You can hit yay. You can hit no. All those likes and dislikes. You can also flip me off in the comments if you need to, saying you're boring the living daylights out of me. Why am I watching you? Go away. Or you might put something constructive criticism in there saying, please don't torture us anymore. We give in to your madness. Of which I'll probably say, it's your own damn fault you went on my channel in the first place, so what the hell. Getting back to the situation I've been trying to talk about, First Amendment rights. On some of the videos I've been posting out there, has been trying to cover some of the rights that I'm familiar with. I'm a 55-year-old person, currently at this age. I'll be turning 56 next January. My God, I'm going to be getting that freaking old. And I've seen a lot of stuff. I've heard too much stuff happening these days, and I've read books like crazy. It doesn't make me a knowledgeable guru. It just gives me a little bit of a base to work with. And life experiences left and right. So I'm not an expert in anything. I'm a college student as well. Those are all my damn disclaimers I'm throwing out there. When I see a student having an issue with a school board, you know I'm going to have to comment about something like this, especially when it reaches my attention over here on the West Coast. Especially when they have a local news station out here on the West Coast in a Los Angeles market, talking about what happened in North Carolina because they needed a news filler. But that did get my attention. Having a student not able to graduate properly because they were practicing the First Amendment rights, that digs into my skin. Now, I know certain rules and procedures are out there, but you have to allow a student to express something for themselves. They're going to be out going into the real world. They're coming out of the school system government. They're going into the regular world government here. Everything is going to be curtailing and propagating. They're going to be driving the student crazy as a young adult because now they got to conform and comply. There is no class for this. It's called life or throw your ass out there. Survive. When you have family and you have friends trying to help you through situations like this, trying to help you practice what your freedoms are, there is no better way than going after a school system through social media at this point, I would think, in my own humble opinion. I'm not saying that you go after them physically, but to demonstrate what freedom of speech is supposed to be. Yes, there are supposed to be rules and regulations of what clothing is supposed to be and what clothing is not supposed to be. And I imagine there had been court cases out there through the local, all the way through state supremes. They have yet to hit the national concerning about school uniforms or what's appropriate to wear, what's not appropriate to wear. People would rather keep it within the school systems. But in our day and age with social media, with the advent that we have regarding smartphones and internet, a camera can be just as deadly as anthrax can be, or as the tightly worded essay ready to entice, inflame, or actually to educate and elucidate what their opinions and facts are supposed to be, what they know of. So, a heavily worded document is just as dangerous as a video out there on social media. A document can be passed around as text or a document or a PDF, even posted on social media in picture forms if possible. But when you get an actual video concerning about a situation happening right in front of your eyes, and you can't believe it, but the camera shows it, then you decide to share it with everybody, including news organizations out there. You're practicing the power of freedom of speech. Now, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. We have the freedom of speech. We are not protected from consequences. I'm going to move this away. I have to say this. Since going over to college, I have been more and more aware of what our rights are, what freedom's supposed to be, and what other things matter in our lifetimes. I also know that freedom is not cheap, it's costly, besides in blood, and it's also costly in action and in consequences. Now keep in mind, I use the word consequences, cause and effect. Just because you have the power of a mouse, it doesn't mean that you're protected. Oh, a mouse, I can move it to the damn thing, click and copy there, click and paste over here. Um, if I'm skillful enough and I've got a careful software program, I can have something clicked all over the place and post it out there on YouTube or in social media. I can click on some applications right now and post a video or an audio right now, what I'm doing. Now here's the thing. Will this damn thing protect me from blowback? Well, if I got an antivirus, I can click that on. That'll be no issue. I can also click off everything else on the computer, and that'll protect me from blowback. Will it? My worst enemy sometimes becomes the best friend. You notice a case. You notice that I turn on a light. And you notice it becomes a cell phone, complete with camera. Now, with such a wonderful device like this, you'd think these things would be easy to use, and they are easy to use once you learn how to technique on these damn things. But what's worse is a three-letter word, how. Let me repeat that again. How. How. No acronyms, no abbreviations. A interrogative. Asking something about what's the technique? What can it do? Too much. Like the laptop with the camera on top of here with a microphone. Too much damage. Freedom of speech involves a lot of techniques, devices, our own vocal cords, our own digits, our own brain, our own eyes, and our own ears. I don't know, maybe our nose, toes, something. Ways of communicating to others. One second. Apologize when I have neighbors talking or yelling at each other about 3:30, nearly 4 o'clock in the morning. Kind of makes things a little difficult sometimes to do. I'll tell you. Are there consequences of freedom of speech? I don't know. You tell me. They're not interfering with this, except I have to keep things low cut now because it might interfere. It might have consequences. If I happen to be a student back in school, back in high school, let's just say if I was in my youth, and if I happened to wear something controversial, what would be controversial during those times? What was the accepted controversy? What was the unacceptable controversy? When I'm talking about controversy, and I'm also talking about consequences here, we're talking about something that's challenging of sorts, if we want to look at it that way. A video posted would bring out a ripple effect. Now, for those who are understanding a little bit of Buddhism, about Zen Buddhists, I have very little knowledge of it, except I understand something about the Japanese garden. And I tried to explain this one a long time ago. If you happen to see a Japanese garden somewhere in your lifetime, or actually Google the picture concerning about a Japanese garden, you'll see that there are geometric shapes, oddly shaped, roundly shaped, doesn't matter what it is, but they have borders. And in the area of sand, or whatever material is, it's usually sand works better, is the object, the stone basically. And you see the concentric circles. Now, if there are many stones in there, you're going to see probably concentric circles lapping, overlapping, interfering with each other, and everything else. You look at this and you're like, okay, what the hell does this mean? This means that anything and everything has a consequence and has a drawback, cause and effect at this point over here. Whatever you do to disrupt someone else's calm is having a drastic effect, except when someone else is trying to influence your calm or something else going wrong, when life is hitting you at different directions. Think of it in this other term, sonar. Sonar. There are movies out there that had showed the operational effect of sonar in a way to demonstrate how sound moves in liquid form and how sound will affect and hit objects to reflect the sound back. In the deep sea, animals use this for communication purposes. Sound is primary underwater. And we humans have a hell of a way of screwing things up left and right by dominating and scaring the living crap out of people. Scaring the crap out of the animal life down there, too. And they're sure to stay the hell away from our ships, but they don't. And they get usually mutilated one way or another. But in an environment without the interference of man, they deal strictly with sound. Sound goes out, waves come back, they pick up information that way. Like our lives, when we generate that much disruption from the stone on that Japanese garden, the concussion waves come back to us as we see that. I mean, we're seeing the outer waves, but we're not seeing the bounce backs. So I had to say something about sonar. Because sonar is doing the same thing, putting the sound waves out there. Whatever's being reflected back, that's what they're getting an image of. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. So using those kind of analogies I'm doing at this point over here, I'm trying to demonstrate something of how our freedom of speech gets affected one way or another by government, of a government system. We are theoretically given freedom of speech and having the effects from government to be limited to nearly zero because we are demonstrating that. But there's only so much the freedom of speech can go for. Now, when it comes down for attire, that should be allowable at times. But it's depending upon the cause and effect, and we're also depending upon what's going to be technically allowed and what's not allowed here, and what has to be consented and mutually agreed upon. But if it's just pointed out, you're just going to be wearing this kind of thing, and that's about it. Somehow, people are going to have to say, what about my freedom of rights? I mean, what about my freedom of speech? What about my own rights? And where do the rights extend to, and for what age? See, in the U.S. Constitution and in the amendment process, they never mentioned what age limit. What age limit? Unless, of course, we've got federal court cases and Supreme Court cases to limit that freedom of speech. And now we're talking about government interference, aren't we? So, my advice to the student, if they actually wanted to raise the First Amendment rights with them, I imagine the lawyer is going to be pretty creative and pretty eager about it, unless, of course, they want to blow things under the water. Then I would probably say, under this particular video I'm putting out there, there's some guy in the West Coast talking about freedom of speech. Is, to my limited knowledge, and I did say limit because I also have to watch out what I'm trading on. Because I know blowback will get to me one way or another. Karma usually has a way of biting me in the ass anyway, one way or another. I've got too many videos out there that karma's just dying to get to me on that one. But if it happened to me, hypothetically speaking, and I wanted to wear something to celebrate of my emergence from a high school into the real world, I probably would have done it, and I probably would have been yelled at. But if I was savvy enough during that time, and if I had the technology, I think I probably would be blasting at them. I'm grateful that we didn't have the controversies back then, because if we did have the controversies back then, we would be having a hell of an issue, wouldn't we? Because during that time in the 80s and earlier on, If there were anything like that, they were being not talked about. Even back in the 70s when they were trying to be the flower child or the graduates from the flower child era, even the 60s, trying to show the peace and love and the psychedelic colors and stuff. I suppose they were having issues over that too. But the thing is, I never came across those in history books or even talked about in history classes. That would have been something to see. Because now we're talking about rebellion and youth here. So I would probably support the student in North Carolina at this point over here for expressing her, or if it was a him, I gotta check that story out one more time to make sure I've got the person right here. Well, I know there was a student trying to wear a Mexican flag over their gown, or wrapped around their gown. They were trying to show how proud they were of their heritage, of who and what they were. And you had a school tearing that down by not allowing this person to graduate properly. And now we got a controversy going on over that. So yeah, now you've opened up Pandora's box right here in North Carolina school. What you going to do about it?